Welcome to Chicago Talks, the platform that shines the spotlight on women who are making notable strides in the world as well as in their field of business. I'm your host, Ray, and this is episode 3 of Women Making Strides. Today, I am accompanied by Tara Levy, an artist, author, and educator from Chicago. For 9 years, she has worked in education, serving various capacities from being a high school English teacher, academic advisor, to community engagement coordinator. Her passion for education and youth development has heavily influenced her art practices and community work. In July 2023, Tara launched the Liberated Arts Movement, an organization dedicated to promoting communal wellness through the arts. Through the organization, she has led consistent monthly and quarterly free and civically engaged programs like the MLK Day of Service, Liberated Writers, and the Harvest. Moreover, Tara has built partnerships with other organizations and cultural institutions like the National Urban League and Ford Philanthropy. Furthermore, Tara has won 2 Goodman Theater 10-minute playwriting competitions and has gone on to write and direct one-act plays produced by the 15th District, Chicago Police Department, and Missouri Theater, and served as the dramaturgy for the Praise House at the Chicago Culture Center. She has also written and illustrated 2 affirmation-based children's books, a poetry book, and an inspirational journal. As a visual artist, Tara has been featured and curated over 15 solo and group exhibits and has been the recipient of several creative endowments like the Chicago Creators for Justice Fellowship and Hyde Park Art Center's Artist Run Chicago Grant. Tara's intention is that through her artistry and community work, others feel seen and empowered by their light. I want to thank you for joining me today on this episode of Women Making Strides. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. Just listening to you read my bio was like empowering me to keep going because I was just sharing one of my board members. It's like sometimes you don't see the fruit of your labor and sometimes you don't realize the fruit of your labor. And so just hearing you share some achievements that I've received is like, yeah, keep going. And it's immediate. So
it's good to have that reminder of the stuff that you did because you do so much that sometimes you just forget the stuff that you did, you know, and then having that reminder is like, oh yeah, I did do that. Oh yeah, I did, you know, I went to these many places. And when you sent your bio, I wasn't expecting that much, but I know a little bit about the organization, but because you don't really know the people who work there until you have a conversation. But I'm like, you've really been out here doing some good things.
Thank you.
Yeah. I want to know a little bit about the theater aspect.
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I was part of Goodman Theater's summer programs. And so I did my first one, I was 14. And it really introduced me to playwriting because I knew I liked to write, but I didn't really have the language for what is it I wanted to do. And so they had their playwriting competition in the summer that was announced to our group. Like there was a different ranges based on age, so like the 14 to 16-year-olds or 17-year-old range, and then like the 18 to, you know, different age ranges. So I applied for my section and I won first place. And that was just like, again, my intro to me being a playwright. Didn't know that was a possibility. And then from there, I entered the competition again 2 years later, won, and both plays were performed at Goodman Theater's smaller theater and acted out by some of their actors. And so that was the first time that I got to see my words on stage. And so now I'm like, let me get back into 14-year-old Tara. Let me channel back to her and like write an actual full-on play. Let me have that same belief in myself that I did over 15 years ago to get back to it.
Being within the art world, I find it exhilarating for how it frees the mind, body, and the soul. So when it comes to you, how does art make you feel when you're able to express yourself?
Art is liberating, hence the name Liberated Arts Movement. Ever since I was a child, art has been my safe place without me necessarily knowing the words for that. I grew up, I wouldn't say shy, but very reserved and observant. And so I wouldn't always speak my mind or be the loudest one, but I would share how I was feeling. I would share some thoughts I had through my artwork, whether that me be drawing a picture or writing poetry, not knowing it was poetry as a youth, and then eventually just developing my craft the older I got. And so art for me is expression, it is freedom, it is putting words to situations you may not have the language for, and making sense out of our various experiences. And so that is what art is for me. And I'm just grateful to be in a place to create art and share my art with my community. And me showcasing my art first started in 2022. One of my co-teachers at the time when I was teaching English at DRW was like, hey, Levy, one of my last names. Hey, Levy, you should check out Black Girl Art Show. And I was like, I don't know, like, scary having my work out there, which it is, right? And so I applied, my application was accepted, and so I did a pop-up. I was a featured artist, so like a pop-up gallery with them. A few months later, I published my first book and had like a pop-up gallery at my book launch. And then when I moved to Charlotte for 2 years in 2021, I was just in various galleries and art show pop-ups throughout the city, and it was just really a great learning experience for me. I also then became empowered to be my own curator, like having the ability to connect with artists, organize shows, get things going like how I'm doing now with our Black History Gallery pop-up. And so overall, it's been about 15 shows between now and 2021.
When you founded Liberated Arts Movement, what was the motivation behind it, and what did those steps look like?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I actually, I had a lot of shifts going on in my life during my initial point of Liberated Arts Movement. I was turning 30 in a few months. I had just left a position, not having a job in line, but I left a job that I did very well in. I was very good at what I did, but the environment was so toxic, and it really like put a strain on me, both physically and emotionally. And so again, I went back into my safe space. What am I good at? What feels good for me? And that's always been art and building communities centered in art. And so that is where the initial point of Liberated Arts Movement came from. It came from me seeking safety, seeking my own wellness throughout periods of transition and uncertainty. And so I think all of that kind of stemmed like the spring of 2023. And then July, August, I began forming Liberated Arts Movement later that year.
Was it just you by yourself, or did you eventually start telling people like, hey, this is what I'm about to do, do you want to become part of the team? Or did you slowly start it as like just a solo project?
So I had been leading annual Juneteenth celebration since 2020. And 2022 was my first year having a committee, like planning committees. And so 2023, one of my members was like, you know what, Tara, you should have your own organization. Like, she planted the seed. And I'm like, well, what type of organization would I build? A lot of that imposter syndrome was forming. Like, well, what can I do? Like, what can I create? And just like talking to her, as well as some few artists in my community that I trust, I'm like, hey, here's my idea. This is what I'm thinking of doing. Would you want to be a founding board member? So the seed was planted outside of me. I began the initial work, and then I reached out to 2 members of my community to be founding board members. So I wouldn't say it was a solo factor. It was more so of like me coming up with the idea and then soliciting help.
Okay. And how do you imagine your organization looking in the next couple of years? And then what are some things on your checklist that are in store for the success of Liberated Arts Movement?
So I'll talk 2025 and then big picture, because it's so funny you have this question today, because just earlier I was interviewing for another board member, and they had the same question, like, what is your vision? What is your overarching goals for now and beyond? And so for 2025, my goal is to fully develop Liberated Writers, which is our youth development educational initiative, having 2 to 3 minimum, at least 2 to 3 partners where we are leading mindfulness-based writing workshops in schools and youth centers. So that is the goal for 2025, one of the goals. And then down the line, I see myself having my own brick and mortar. So whether that be a gallery or a coffee shop or somewhere just cute and cozy, and inviting for people to come and share their art and perform, and then be very community oriented. And so raising funds to make this dream a reality, meeting up with the right people, constantly pitching my stories, pitching my ideas is how I'm going to get this done, as well as stepping out of my own way. Yeah. I was just sharing this in one of my writing workshops this past Saturday to a group of so impactful young people. And we were talking about our goals for 2025. And I'm like, you know what? 2024 was a pretty cool year, but I know there are things I can do better. I know there are things that I can improve on and like be more strategic in the way that I do my work. And so now is the time to do that. Stepping out of my own way, getting focused and being consistent is how I'm going to be able to achieve these goals for 2025 and then long-term goals as well.
Okay. So a pattern that I've been seeing from the conversations I've had with 2 other young ladies are that the youth play a huge part in everything that they do. And we understand that the children are the future, and however you feed them is how they will grow more forward in the future. And implementing certain things within them as they get older, they carry it with them. And if they have the support system, they'll be successful in a lot of endeavors that they go on, because not a lot of children have support at home. And if they don't have support at home, then they won't be able to believe in the stuff that they want to do. And they may be ostracized because of that. But like for people like you who are working with the youth, they have a sense of hope and a sense of faith that whatever they put their mind to, they can do. And with that, I want to ask, how do you go about engaging the youth in wanting to utilize art as a form of expression?
Yeah, I think one, you have to build a sense of kinship, a sense of connection, understanding. It can't be like, hey, I'm doing this writing workshop, you need to do it. Right. It's more so of like, well, what do we have in common? What are your interests? What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? Establishing some rapport, and then we can share, okay, these are what I hold to be important. These are my values. This is what I'm interested in doing. And with you, I would like to host a workshop. But we're co-creating what that looks like. It's not just one-sided. And a lot of times, well, sometimes, I'm going to speak on that all the time, but sometimes we deem young people as being inadequate leaders. That because we are the adults, we hold the authority, we hold the power, we have all this knowledge. But before we were adults, we were younger, we were children. And we didn't just arrive to this place. I didn't just wake up 31. I was at one point 15. And I still was a very capable leader at 15. And so trusting that young people have skills necessary to serve, that it's ingrained in them already, and treating them as adequate leaders, as capable leaders now, and empowering them to shine and empowering them to use their gifts is how we begin to do our work with Liberated Writers, with creative art workshops that we host.
Do you have themes for your workshops? How do you?
It depends. We do have themes. So Liberated Writers, for my latest partnership with Chicago Urban League, we had monthly themes. And so Activating Our Dream was January's theme in honor of Dr. King's holiday, as well as a essay competition that's coming up. And so it depends on the group of students that we're working with, depends on what's relevant to them as how we come up with the themes.
So what's the age group?
And again, it varies on the workshops. The current workshop that I have is high schoolers, so 9th through 12th graders. But with the goal for our 2025 year of having various partnerships throughout Chicagoland, we'll have elementary school students as well as high schoolers.
Because, we are older, we do have that authority, but there are children who are very much aware of themselves, and they take the initiative to step out and, do things that may seem out of the ordinary to like a typical person. But I find interest in organizations who are trying to help the youth and not just more so focusing on just adults themselves. And the youth, we have to put our focus on them because they come from so many different backgrounds, and sometimes, like I said, it may be hard for them to, or they don't have the support that they may need in order to grow and go forward. And as far as like your establishment, what does your everyday life look like?
It's looking like having more consistency and more of a fruitful routine. So right now, having a consistent rhythm is what I am working on currently. And so that looks like waking up, being grounded, not having my phone, not checking my phone for like the first hour, going outside for a walk, even if it's like 10 degrees outside, because it's Chicago. Right. Going outside, just getting some like endorphins going, getting some movement, doing some physical activity. I have a gym downstairs in my building, or just dancing in my apartment, having that be a flow, then getting ready for my day, taking a shower, eating, and then from like 12 to 6, more or less, is like my work time. And so that may look like today I had an interview for a board member. I was working on a newsletter, checking emails, responding to my emails, more administrative tasks, but also fun things like going out in the field and meeting people. I'm meeting someone at an art gallery exhibit on Thursday. Like, that's really cool, just to see how we can like collaborate. But having a flow and a routine that I can be consistent and hold myself accountable is what I'm currently working on for 2025 and beyond. And so thank you for asking what that looks like, because I also was like sharing, like affirming what it will look like having a rhythm. Well, not every day will be the same, but like having some type of predictability and accountability. Also, I wanted to know if I could share a poem.
Oh, please do.
I just feel like the spirit is calling me to share this.
Please do.
So you said, how are the children? And I literally have a poem in my book called All Is Well. But it's a piece called How Are the Children? And so a lot of what I'm doing is that question. How are the children? And so I'm going to pull this up and share this quick poem with you.
I'm always down for a poem.
Yeah, I'm like, I think it fits. I think it fits. And again, this is what I'm passionate about. Prior to launching Liberated Writers, I served in education as an English teacher for 8 years. And so this is like what I want to do. This is what is within me, because I've always liked to write, and I want to help other young people be inspired to write, even if they are not initially good at it right now. Here it is. It was taking a minute to pull up, because sometimes technology wants to work with us, sometimes it don't.
Unfortunately.
But here we go. How are the children? A tribe in Africa called Maasai Acknowledge that the state of society is greater than you and I, professing they were intrinsically connected to the welfare of the youth, the next generation in line to serve and lead. So if society flourished or was in dire need, that would show up in the children, because we would be the soil and they the seeds, growing at the root, and what we give produce the fruit. Rather than greet each other with a, hey, how are you? People of my side would ask, how are the children? And if the children were well, fed, educated, and nurtured, then they too would be well. The community would prevail. But if the children were unwell, the community would also reflect. Like mirrors or looking through a glass, they would try to find ways to empower the children in their homes, activities, and class. So imagine if this was our way of greeting, how would this impact our meetings? If we too recognize that the state of who we are, how we're feeling that day, directly related to young people in crucial ways. And if asked, how are the children, could we say that they are well? And that's that piece.
Oh, snap.
Thank you for the snaps. Thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, man. Do you go perform your poems when you write them or no?
Yeah, I perform probably like once a month.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say.
Sometimes I step into the scene. I know I did some time ago, and I was like upset I couldn't make it to yours that weekend. Yeah, I had to take care of something. Something came unexpected. I wasn't for it to happen that way. But if you do end up having any other poetry events, please let me know. Are you having one for Black History Month?
Okay, shameless plug. I have in partnership with Forest Park Public Library, love them, grateful to partner with them. We're having a month-long Black art exhibit. So I'm also a visual performing artist. Well, visual and performing artist. And so I'll be showcasing my work as well as 3 to 4 other artists. And our work will be on display from February 1st to February 28th. And so for opening night, you're welcome. Everyone's welcome to come. It'll be February 1st. That's a Saturday from 6 to 8 p.m. And I'm going to do a piece called More Than a Month. How Black history is more than a month. It's not just 28 days. Even though our exhibit will be on for 28 days, what we have to offer, who we are, the sacrifices that were made for us to be here are a lot deeper than celebrating for a month. And so I'm debating calling the exhibit More Than a Month, but I'm also like, let me sleep on it, let me write about it, let me think about it.
I'm glad that you said more than a month, because I do have a poem and it's called Black, Green, and Red. And within the poem, I do talk about how we need more than a month to explain the history of our people. It was a 2-part poem, but then I'm like, no, I'm just going to put it all together. Because the message is still there and it's pretty clear, but I'm like, okay, I'm like, more than a month? I'm like, I got something for that.
Okay, yeah, it's more than a month. So how does that sound for you? Then, like, you think that's a cool like exhibit name, or should I like dig deeper?
I like it personally. If especially for it being Black History Month, you kind of get the idea of like, okay, more than a month. Yeah, because we need more than just 28 days to explain our story.
Hello. Especially when our stories are like threatened not to be told anymore, that we can't read about them.
And then it's being remixed so much, and it's like, why? Like, come on now, people. If you're gonna tell the truth, you gotta tell the whole truth. Don't tell part of it or don't tell none of it.
Hello.
Like it's kids growing up in this world. Like they're gonna have to know about these things, especially if they get the question like, well, why are we treated like this? And then you have to have the conversation just be strictly because of our skin color. I know you touched just a little bit on it, but do you find your work as a passion, or do you find it as a dream that you were able to make come true?
I am passionate about the work that I'm doing. and I'm working on having my dreams come true.
So what's the dream?
A lot of dreams.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big dreamer,
Uh-huh.
and I feel like I'm on my way. I think my dream is in action. The dream has been activated, but I wouldn't say that it's fully in reality just yet, which is good. This time last year, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm not succeeding at this, and that. But it's like, actually, this gives me something to look forward to work towards. So yeah, I would say I'm very grateful. Like, thank you, God, for providing me the ability, the freedom to do what I do. You know, going back to our ancestors, they didn't have this opportunity to sit on Riverside.fm and have interviews and shoot the breeze. They didn't have this luxury. So even on, like, you know, days where I'm like not feeling it, days where I'm not like, I don't know if this is what I'm doing, like if I'm doing this right, at least I have that freedom, that choice to be like, oh, what is my passion? Am I working in my passion? Am I moving in alignment? At least I have the space to do that. Versus not at all. And so that's why I'm like, I'm grateful for the season that I'm in. I also believe that I am moving in alignment, and that doing work that is consistent and what that I'm passionate about is going to push me to my dream, to answer your question.
So what are you passionate about?
I am passionate about being around young people, and encouraging them and just lifting them up and hearing from them and learning from them, connecting with them. I'm passionate about art in all forms. Like, I can't sing, but I love hearing, like, singing, live music, instruments. I love dance. I love visual art, creating art. And I just love connecting with people, like of all ages, of all backgrounds. Those things I'm passionate about, and also like speaking on injustices in creative ways. Like, art can be protests.
Yeah.
Poetry can be protests, which I share a lot in my book as well. And so writing also are things that I'm passionate about. And so that I'm reflecting again. Sometimes you just gotta like sit and talk it out or just listen. It's like, yeah, I'm working in things that I'm very passionate about. It's just, again, consistency and making sure that I'm focused and doing my work.
We can date back to like the Harlem Renaissance and like the Chicago Renaissance, how a lot of different artists use their work to protest. And even though like there are a lot of different mediums of art, like the contemporary art, you have like abstract, you have modernized art, but the pattern or the direction that a lot of artists tended to go to were to dedicate their art to Africa. Like, they used African masks and different sculptures, and so it could be a reminder of where we came from. And from our background, it's easy to lose hope because of the different things we had to go through in the years of torment and downfalls that we had to face in order to get to where we are today. We have to have that sense of reminder of where we came from. You know, like I said, when they use like the African motifs and things like that, like I said, it's a form of liberation, but it also is a calling to those like who oppressed us. Like, hey, like, you know, we going through all of this, but we're still here. We still have that light, no matter how many times you try to throw us in the dirt. We're still here, and we're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's why I love art personally. Like, I'm a big fan of art, and I really do want to visit New York, specifically Harlem, because I do want to experience the art that was left there in those museums of artists who were a part of that beautiful migration. Even just being in Chicago, going to the art museum and seeing the people who are a part of that as well, it gives me a form of like that. It gives me that light still, even though it's never going to go anywhere, because I do use my poetry as a form of liberation. I do use it as a platform to spread messages, even to like uplift those or whatever the case may be. And art plays a really big part within our community as a whole. And whether it's through music, whether it's through painting, whether it's through dance, whether it's through singing, it's a lot of different aspects, and it's very vital for us because that was our voice. When we weren't able to speak and have platforms like this, we used our art to speak what we feel.
Yeah.
And we have to, it's important that we keep carrying that. So when it comes to being creative, what does your process look like, and where do you get your inspiration from?
That's a good question too. I haven't created, and I'm gonna say a while from my standpoint. Mm-hmm. But life is an inspiration, just in general, and experiences. So I'm highly inspired. I'm frequently inspired. Now, do I go and act on it all the time? Working on it. But certain conversations can inspire me, certain words, quotes. I'm like, oh, that is making me think of this image. I should draw it. Or that's making me think of this experience that I had. I should write about it. And so when I do get to the place of just creating that process, it looks like me just focusing, whether I have music or no music at all. Depending on what it is that I'm making. If I'm writing, I probably won't have music with words. Bless you. Music that's like instrumental, so like maybe like jazz music playing in the background, or like I think it's called lofi beats. Yeah, I love that. And then if I'm like drawing or like painting, it's literally like Burna Boy or like Erykah Badu, Pandora Station. And I play that and maybe like light a candle so it could be a whole vibe and like create. And so that's actually one of my goals this week, is to create something, whether that be an art piece or a poem or a short story. Last Saturday, my cousins and I had like a vision board lunch. And so instead of having a vision planning, goal planning lunch, so instead of having an actual vision board, we had mini portraits that we created. Now, mind you, we did not like any of the portraits we made, but the intention was to focus on what our goals would look like for 2025. So yeah, one of my goals, one of my focuses this year is to intentionally create at least once a week.
So I know we talked about consistency and making sure that you stay creative. Every week you want to do something. So when you implement that going forward, how do you see yourself developing as Tara over the next couple of months? How do you see that helping your development as a person?
I see me developing as seeing myself as an artist and CEO. When I first started the Liberated Arts Movement, I was working on it part-time and working somewhere else full-time. And then this past summer was the first time that I worked on it full-time. And I, for the longest, was like, well, I guess I just don't have a job. But I'm like, no, the Liberated Arts Movement is my job. But because I didn't hold myself accountable as if I were in a full-time position, I didn't see myself as someone that had the authority to do this work full-time. And so building again, being consistent and holding myself accountable. Themes, okay, this is the theme. This is what we're doing. Being accountable, holding myself accountable. It can be hard sometimes. And so once I'm able to finalize or strengthen that routine, those habits of working during this time and this time, taking my breaks when needed and getting back to it, that's when I can see myself develop as a businesswoman, as an artist, and be proud of the work that I'm doing versus thinking, oh, I could do more, I should be doing this.
I want to thank you for joining me on this episode, and I wish you well in your endeavors. I know you're going to do a lot of, I've been saying this a lot, but I know that you're going to do a lot of great things, especially implementing art, because like I said, it plays a huge part in our community, and we use it as a voice, and we need that. When we cannot vocalize ourselves, just having conversations, we have to have something else to use, and art is a really big thing for us. And I pray that you continue to keep doing it, and from how you've expressed it to me, I feel as though it's when you combine art as well as everything else that you do, I feel as though you're doing like your heart's work, and it's a big passion for you. So yeah, I wish you well in your endeavors, and I pray that you keep going and you keep making continuous strides, and you stick to that consistency and that accountability, so that you can make it greater and beyond as years to come, months to come, centuries to come.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes.